First of all, I want to say hello to everyone. I feel like I've been in contact with most of you, but if we haven't met each other either in person, face-ish to face, or via email, I'm Mara. I'm the comms person for SFP. And after lots of talking, we decided that it would be a good idea to do a little bit of a comms support series, as you know. So this is session 1 out of 3, and we're going to start off with sort of the basics. Now, we've done one comm session with the counties group as a little bit of a trial, and also to see what kind of questions came up, what feelings about comms came up. I've been trying to ask people in general. So I'm going to really try and tailor this to you guys as food partnership coordinators, without much time, without necessarily much interest in communications, without necessarily any sort of background experience or skills. I think we all have skills in communication because we get about and we talk to each other, so have some skills in communications anyway. But before we start, if you could pop in the chat in one or a few words how you feel about the comms of your food partnership as it is at the moment, that would be enormously helpful just to get a flavor of how you're all feeling. I've also just realized I can't see the chat, but I'm going to find it. Okay, here we go. So just in, yeah, one or a few words. So not so good yet, lack of volunteers, work in progress, fledgling, a bit under-resourced, loads of potential, IT skills limited, light touch comms, all by volunteers, trying to get to the next level, time intensive. I don't quite understand this one. Time intensive, that it is time intensive. We don't have much potential. I'm going to come back to that one. I've avoided social media my whole life. It's completely fair. Completely fair. Takes time and resource, IT skills. Okay. I want to ask a very quick question to Lauren about, oh, there is a lot of potential. Okay, right. Okay, cool. I thought you were saying there's not a lot of potential. All right. Brilliant. Okay, that's really helpful and interesting. And one other thing before we get fully into the swing of things, if you could put in one or a few words what you are hoping to get out of this 1 hour session. Obviously the course is like a little bit longer, but in this session, total basics, that would also be very helpful. So if you could just pop that into the chat so we can get an idea. I think this point about avoiding social media, it's a really sticky one. I've spoken to a lot of people who are like, I would never ever go anywhere near any of these social media platforms if it wasn't for work, and I understand. So it's going to be interesting. So cover some basics. Don't assume I know anything. Useful tips and list of priorities. Basics. Instagram novice. Where to get started. Okay. Any more from anyone else? Any other bits, hopes and dreams for this 1 hour session? Understanding more about the dashboard. Okay, fantastic. Okay, hashtags. All right, brilliant. Hashtags, also a weird one. All right, are we happy? Can I have some thumbs up? Are we happy to get going? Yes, fab. Thank you. I can see lots of smiles, which is very encouraging, especially when it's something that you're like, ugh, it's going to be a horrible topic. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Quick way of doing pick descriptions. All right, so I'm going to share my screen, and share my little presentation. As I said to Vera in the beginning, what I'm going to do is probably pop it in and out of the presentation. So just bear with me while I pop it on the screen. Okay. So here we go. Oh, quick question to Vera. Can you just see my presentation or can you see the whole screen? Oh, I can't hear you.
Whole screen.
You can see the whole screen. Okay, right, let's try it a different way then. I don't know, my computer is sometimes being particularly weird at the moment. Right, here we go. Now you should be able to see the whole thing. Okay, fab. So, right. Okay. So comms support, comms. My intention for this session is to go through how to make ourselves look good and as fund worthy as possible. But the mantra throughout the whole 3 sessions being to make the most with the least amount of input, because I understand that everybody is very stretched and doesn't necessarily have loads of time and input and energy to put into it. So first session, minimum. Aim of the first session, how to make the most with the least, how to make us look good. So the first part is about the dashboard. I think if you have like 1 hour to dedicate to comms and no more, the most important, most sort of top priority thing you could do is fill in the dashboard. I've put in this horrible looking list of things to show that from January to August this year, thousands and thousands of people have looked at our member pages and have looked at the network. The main landing pages of our website are looked at by literally thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So even if you don't have loads of time to invest in a web page about yourself somewhere else or social media or anything, our dashboard and our member page about you is a fantastic place to start. So the dashboard, once you've logged in, looks like this picture on the left. What I'm going to do is out and show it to you. We can do that right now, actually, because I think that would be most helpful to really get into it. So I know that there are so I've done a really, really big push to get everyone into the dashboard as much as humanly possible. But I also know that one of the biggest issues that we've had is a sharing. So basically when a coordinator leaves and then there's this gap where there's nobody there and someone else comes in new, there's a real question about what's the first thing I should do? How do I get in touch? How do I get logged in? And this is something, just before the session started, we were saying with Vera, we would really like to work with Andrea, our new network coordinator, to make sure that there's like a full handover pack that gets passed on to the next coordinator, however they've sort of arrived at the job. And within that, I would like to have a really beefy comms induction bit within that. Obviously, this is the beginning of it, but we'd like to have it also written down, because the very, very, very basic thing is, in order to get into the dashboard, you need to be placed there either by me or somebody else, and then you have access and then you can change whatever you want. But there's almost like a quantum leap of how do I get into the very beginning phase. So accessing the dashboard once you're in post should be very, very feasible. And even just asking the question to any one of the team is enough to get you in. So that shouldn't be so complicated. But once you are into the dashboard, I've taken Aberdeen here as our example. What absolute first thing to do if you need to add anybody else onto your dashboard is to go onto dashboard logins. And here you have the first person, lead contact who appears on the page. So that's the person that people will try and find if they're trying to get connected to that partnership. And then I'm not actually sure how many people you can have, but I've seen up to at least 5 extras added on. And all you need to do is sign in and add another person. And again, if you ever get stuck, just contact me or anyone else in the team. We'll be able to add you in. The way to log in, there's no secret magic password. It's just you have to go in and reset your password, like basically we have to do with everything else. And then the absolute most important next thing is to fill in information about your page. So my top tip is to please fill in as much of everything as you possibly can. It doesn't take that long. It doesn't matter if it's not perfect or exactly what you would like to say about your partnership just yet, but anything is better than nothing on the page. So it's quite extensive. It can be as detailed as you want it to be, but filling in as much information as possible is really the thing to do. So at this point, I just want to pause and see if anybody has any questions. Any questions from anyone about the dashboard at this stage, or any particular questions about anything else we would like to cover? Charlotte?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, that's all right. Yes, you talk about people coming up, ordinary people. No, I don't mean ordinary. I mean people who are interested coming in onto your site, and how many people are coming on. How many can actually access the dashboards of individual places to see what they're doing? And how do they get in if we need a password?
So the dashboard is only for partnership coordinators to fill in information about their partnership. Anyone who's just looking at the website can't access the dashboard, but what they will be able to see, let me come out, so you can still see my screen. What they will be able to see is this. So they'll come onto the website, they'll go onto members, they'll click on Aberdeen, and they'll see the page that's the front-facing page on our website about Aberdeen. And what I've just shown you, the dashboard, is the back end where you're filling in the information as the partnership coordinator that then appears on the front of the website. So everything that you put in. So Martin Carl here, he's the lead contact. He'll appear as the lead contact, and the other people won't be seen on the front-facing side of the website. Okay. Any other questions at this point?
Sabina, did you have a question? I saw your hand raised briefly.
Thanks.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
That's okay. I did, and I'm not sure if it's the right time to ask, but there was a question about why we didn't have all of our social media handles, and it's because we haven't set them up. So presumably you don't want us to put names that we might use in future if we're not actually active on social media yet.
So I would say put in what you have with everything, whether it's social media handles, whether it's actual information about your partnership. I've had lots of conversations with people where I've been doing the big push to get them to fill in their dashboards, and they say, we haven't quite got our, food strategy in place yet, or we haven't got this in place yet. But my answer is just fill in what you have. It doesn't matter where you're at.
What I'm saying is we don't actually have any of those handles yet. So
that's fine. That's fine. You can only fill in what you've got. If you don't have them yet, then you don't have them. That's absolutely fine. Yes. So, right. So that's what I would say is just once you get onto the dashboard, let me come back to my presentation. I haven't helped myself today with doing this on a single screen, I have to say. I do apologize. So let's come back because this shows us the whole dashboard anyway. So once you're on the dashboard, make your way through all of the different sections. Also, just to familiarize yourself with what's there, there's nothing more mysterious than what's here. So this will be the page that you will see. There's nothing more mysterious. The logins will allow you to log in. There was a question about a password. There isn't a password. There isn't a secret password to log yourself or anyone else in your team in. All you have to do is reset the password, unfortunately, or fortunately. So it could be whatever you want it to be. The only thing that matters is that we have your email address recorded correctly. If you have any issues with it, just let me know. Or let our team know, let anybody in the team know, and we will get you logged in. And that goes for anyone else who also joins your team. To add someone in, you or we will be able to do that without any problem. And then just make your way through the different segments. So logins, then everything that you can say about yourselves, Any photos that you have, photos are brilliant. We love photos. Anything that you feel you are experts on or other people consider you to be experts on. This is also very, very useful because you can advertise your own events on our website. Just put in all of the information and they'll be published onto our website. You can put in documents, you can put in reports that have been going on. You can adjust where you are exactly on the Google map, where your location sits. It can't be a large geographical area, it's only a pinpoint on the map, but in case it becomes like recently we had Wells turned into Somerset, so they might want to like slightly readjust where they appear on the map. And then the last two things are more internal. The assets, as I said, is the like small library of internal documents that you as partnership coordinators have access to. We are in the process of reviewing what sits in the assets, and hopefully there'll be the really comprehensive handover document of what it means to be a food partnership coordinator, lots of useful links and bits and bobs, but that's where your sort of library of resources lies, including logos and kind of tips about lots of different things. And then at the moment, currently, we have this peer link section, which isn't really related to comms, but so just a small note to say that this is a system where we offer very small grants in order for partnership coordinators to meet each other and talk about anything they need to. So any other questions before we move on to the next section from here? I don't think I can see everyone if they have their hands up. Anybody? Okay, all right. I think we can safely move on to the next section then. All right, so number one, fill in your dashboard. If you have any queries, also just give me a call. I will put all of my contact details in at the end. So with the spirit of making the most out of the least amount of tools, that's the very, very first thing. The second thing, this looks a bit overwhelming and like a lot of things, but what I've tried to do is condense my top tips, my priorities about what you can do to make yourselves look good and to communicate your message well. And the very, very, very first thing is the logo design. So I think that there is a lot of underestimation of the simplicity of sending out a single message time and time again. I recently sort of came across the example of Bristol. I don't want to say anything negative about Bristol, but I have found that I have been very confused about who they are, which organization they work under, and what the name of their partnership is. That is because they've had multiple campaigns under kind of one umbrella, and they've had brilliant sort of branding and designs and logos for each thing, but they've had so many of them that it's kind of difficult to find really easily, if you're an outside person, which one is their main one. So my advice would be invest in a single logo, invest in a single name, invest in a single coloring to your logo design, whatever font you choose. If you want a tagline, stick to one thing. It doesn't have to be forever. It can be just for a year or two or however long you want it to be for, but stick to one thing, one kind of branding. So I'll come a little bit more into that in the next slide. And so the logo, right. In the simplest way possible, what I can say is that you can create your own logo. You don't have to pay a designer to do it. You could get a student to do it. You could, if you're feeling brave, do it yourself. And all you really need is the name of your partnership, a symbol, an image, if you like, and some colors that you like, that you think fit to your partnership, your place, your area, and that you consistently stick with. We, of course, have the Sustainable Food Places kind of logo sort of badge that we give you as you come to be a new member. But I wouldn't say that that's extremely helpful in terms of people recognizing who you are, because they will look very, very similar. And the other thing is to stick to a small color palette, a kind of idea of what sort of imagery you're going for. Again, if you're not kind of visually minded or design minded, don't worry about this too much. This is not the be all and end all. It's just my top tip for making sure that you're recognizable. And have a little think about who you are trying to reach. Are you trying to be friendly, family friendly? Are you trying to reach older people, younger people? Are you trying to make it look a little bit edgy or not? If this doesn't float your boat, just don't worry about it too much. Just think logo, colors, tagline, that's it. If you want to go more into it and have a little play with it, it doesn't take forever. Here, and we can for sure come back to this a little bit later on, I am just showing a piece of software that I use and that lots and lots of people use called Canva. You can use it for free. It's a little bit limited if you use it for free, or you can pay for it. But that's the easiest way to do this kind of super start point design work. So even just creating a logo, if it's you or a student or an art student or a volunteer or someone who's really enthusiastic about graphic design, super simple and easy to use. You'll be surprised and amazed at how easy it is to use. So the creation of a logo is not beyond anybody's abilities, I believe. And then, right, let's come back to this page. So we've talked about the logo and the idea of having a little bit of branding and design. The other couple of things that I'm now going to run you through are taking photos. Taking photos, having imagery of what your partnership is up to, what your place looks like, just activities and things, if they're not necessarily already part of the partnership, things that you're aspiring to, just take as many photos as you possibly can, or get somebody else to take photos when you have events. I have to say that I see a lot of pictures of meetings. Pictures of meetings aren't the most exciting thing, but they do show that there's activity. I think one of the challenges that we have in the work that we do is communicating what it's all about. And imagery is one of the most powerful ways of doing this, because it just says so much more than you can with lots of words. And also, obviously, we live in a world where everybody has a very limited attention span. And if you show them a photo, they kind of get it quicker than if you send them 500 words of writing. So take photos at any possible opportunity. And then the other two things are very linked with this. So why have I put Google? I put Google because, unfortunately, if we can't Google you, to many people, you don't exist. This is a very bizarre state of affairs. I understand that. But the point I'm putting it here is, again, branding and design. And the other point is to invest in your anchor is super important if you want people to find you. In another session that I did, somebody asked me, shouldn't we be investing first and foremost in in-person events? And I said, in my opinion, no, because say you have this in-person event, say you have a stall in a town square or wherever your place is, you meet lots of people, you talk to loads and loads of people about the work that you do, they're super enthusiastic, they're really excited, they go home, they try to Google you, they can't find you, and therefore their engagement ends. What's really helpful is to have an anchor point that people can come back to and find out more information about what the partnership is up to, who's behind it, who is it being funded by, what activities can they get involved in. So the anchor is absolutely, again, paramount, important in terms of priority. And in the third session that we're having on the 19th of October, we'll go into more detail about how to create your own web page or basic website if you feel that you have the capacity to go beyond having just a page on our website. But even just the page on our website can perfectly well act as your anchor point. If you Google Fairfood Aberdeenshire, it will come up in the top Google search results, and it will be linked to sustainable food places. So it shows that you're part of this bigger network. I'm not trying to sell it to you, but I'm just saying it's the easiest thing to do rather than creating a whole website. So investing in your anchor so that people can find you after they've engaged in activities is really helpful. And the other point is about making sure that everything is linked. So what do I mean by this? If you have say, for example, you do have different social media platforms. Say you have a Facebook page, and you've decided to try LinkedIn or Instagram, and you also have your web page, and somebody's made a film about you, what's incredibly helpful, and also in terms of the way that the internet is organized, is to make sure that all of these things are linked and that you're linking them. You're empowered, you're in the sort of empowered position to make sure that they're all linked together. That could be that your website has active links to your social media pages, or your web page, for example, as you've said, once you have your social media channel is featured on the web page, so that everything is linked together and they can find you. A kind of cheat way to do this is to use Linktree. So I am going to come out of the presentation and show you what I mean, because I think it's only by sort of showing you that it makes any sort of sense at all. Sometimes these things feel incredibly abstract until you've kind of fiddled with them, right? So I am going to show you our Instagram, for example. So our Instagram page, can you all see it okay? Yes? Yes, okay. So our Instagram page has obviously our logo, has the tagline, the blurb about what we say that we do, hashtag, which we'll come back to because that was a specific question, and then it has this link. Now, Instagram, like lots of other social media platforms, will ask you, what's your website? I could have just put my website on here, our website, and our website has all of these links to all of the different things sort of in cyberspace that mention us, almost. But what I've decided to use is Linktree. And the reason that I've done that is because on Instagram, it's a really, really useful way to share things which can be clicked on directly. But whether you're using Instagram or not, Linktree, if you don't have a website, is almost like a cheat way of having a website, because what it allows you to do is have these boxes that feature things that are of importance to you in that moment and link directly to a page on the internet. So say, for example, I had never come across sustainable food places before, or I've just heard of them. I've looked them up on Instagram. I've clicked on the link to kind of find out more. And I think, oh, what are sustainable food places? And I click on this link and it will take me to the web page that will explain what we do. So again, we can come out at the end of the presentation and talk a little bit more about how Linktree works. But my general best advice, especially if you are self-proclaimed with lack of IT skills, is play around with it. Just play around with it and see what works. If you feel really, really inept, get someone who does understand it to play around with it with you so that you know where to go. Right. So, okay, right. The last piece of this first section, and then we'll take a break and have questions. The last piece, and I need to go back to my presentation, right, is just coming back to this slide here. So we asked about, someone asked, oh my gosh. So we asked about priorities, and these are my 1, 2, 3, 4 top priorities. So invest in your logo, your coloring, your basic design. Make sure that you invest in your anchor, whether that be your dashboard or a web page or your website, even if it's super, super, super simple and it's only got a few pages. Take as many photos as you possibly can at any point. Get other people to take photos for you and send them to you. And make sure that everything is linked together. Right, I'm going to stop here and ask if anybody has any particular questions. And anything else, we can also go into more detail when we have more questions. Any questions at this point from anyone? Charlotte's shaking her head, but also smiling, which suggests to me that she has some things to say.
No, I was thinking I would have put my hand up in the, in the reactions if I wanted to ask anything. So okay. Thank you. I have no questions.
Brilliant. Louise?
Hi everyone. Yeah, mine's not a question, it's a comment really. I think you
I don't know
remember
if you
me.
can hear me. Oh, Louise is okay. Sorry, my audio's cut out.
Sorry, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I think you probably remember the email correspondence with me about Doncaster, and we had a bit of a nightmare because the person who was doing it before had moved on. And just to say, you know, I'm still very early days with this, but this is really, really helpful. But the only thing with our partnership in Doncaster is we're in a bit of a transition mode. So I've kind of got a working group that's going to become the Food Network. So there won't be as much activity on ours yet, but this is all really helpful. So just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. I think, to be honest, also saying that you're in transition often is helpful, because it's just that classic thing of, you don't want to sort of lose people too much along the way, especially if you're still out there, you're still speaking to people, you're still building links within your partnership and speaking to people, and they think, oh, what's the, Doncaster Food Network up to? And they go online and it's a link that's 3 years old and they think, oh, maybe they don't exist anymore. So even if somewhere fairly visible you have, a few lines just saying exactly what you said, we're in transition, we're rebranding, or we're renaming, or we're reappointing a team, or whatever it might be, I think it's just making sure, it's like, I think the sort of old school way of thinking about it is just like, your website is your bulletin. It's like, this is what's happening at the moment. Maybe it's nothing, maybe it's check back in 3 months or 6 months, but it's just making sure that people know something if they're looking for that information.
Thank you.
No worries at all. Any other questions from anyone else at this point? All right, let me just stop sharing my screen as well. Okay, right, brilliant. So I would say that that's sort of my run through of all of the different points. So what I would like to go into is a little bit more precise example of the different points. If anybody would like to sort of volunteer what they would most like to focus on. So say whether that's a little bit of an exploration of what Canva looks like, for example, or let's build a logo together. Does anybody have any like burning sort of specific questions on that front? Because I also know that not within my presentation, there was a question about social media platforms and where to start. So that would be my next point. Anybody have any questions before that one? Nope. Okay. Can I have a hands up with who asked the question or who would like to know more about the social media platforms? So Sabina. Okay.
Anya's raised her hand, but is that to
Anya
say
and Jenny
yes?
and Francesca.
Okay, thumbs up. I see.
Okay, fab. Since there's only 4 of you, would you like to unmute yourselves and share specifically what questions you have about social media, or whether it's even just like, wow, don't know where to start, don't know what to do?
I'll start if everyone's all right with that. Yeah, so like we've been going for a little while. We designed our logo probably about 4 years ago, and we've had, unfortunately, not really the resource either financially or in terms of the time and the expertise to set up our own website. We desperately need one. So I have kind of, sort of made a social media page on Facebook. So we have a Calderdale Food Network page and group. I don't manage it particularly well. It could be my skill set if I had time to learn it more. We have a Twitter account as well, and we haven't yet really used Instagram. And I suppose my question is, I'm definitely not using them entirely to, the capacity that they could. I'm not getting the benefits they could. So an example would be, we're having our Calderdale food gathering on the 5th of October. So I made a kind of a post and I put it up, but it's not featuring at the front all of the time. And I know that there are ways to learn how to do this, but I'm just wondering, is there any kind of top tips that you could put together to navigate? And I, really appreciate the fact that you referenced in the very sort of beginning of this meeting that you do recognize that time is a huge issue. It's not just about whether we do this or we don't, it's time. So if there was a possibility of some key tips about how, for instance, we could have a post that always stays there, or have an interactive opportunity for people to sign up. Some of those simple go-tos would be really helpful. I suppose the second question I would have then also is how best to link in with Twitter. And I think it's great. I will definitely have a look into Linktree. I wasn't aware of that. But where you can maybe do something on one platform and it naturally or automatically gets replicated on others, you know, again, here I go, time saving. But, you know, that's really it. It's how to be as efficient as we could possibly be. I'm not ever going to be that person who gets up at 12 o'clock at night and spends 4 hours on social media trying to figure out how to promote the Cold Deaf Food Network. It's just not my thing. But equally, I would love to be able to have quick ways to, you know, when I'm doing something, quickly put it out there. It's done and it's working. Thank you. That's me done.
Brilliant. Thank you. There were a few more points or comments or. So Claire?
I've got my head around Facebook. So we're a bit sort of under-resourced at the moment. Everything's sort of still quite new. So on Facebook, I've been creating some posts, but mainly sharing things from across, you know, the Cornish food system. So sharing things that partners are doing. LinkedIn is fine. I'm also comfortable with that, but I just don't know where to start with Instagram because it doesn't work in the same way, does it? So for me, just a basic understanding of you know, how you would go about, you know, a post on Facebook is quite straightforward, isn't it? All I know about Instagram is that it's a different beast and it doesn't work in the same way. So probably the best thing for me to do would be to try and recruit someone younger to do that side of things. But I still think it would be worth me having an overview. I've set up an account, but that's as far as I've got with Instagram. We're not using it at the moment. So.
Okay, brilliant. Sabina, you're unmuted. Did you have a question or interjection?
I think people have pretty much covered what I want, although I suppose it would be really helpful to have a précis of like why you would use Twitter, why you would use Instagram, like who are the different audiences that you're likely to reach, why you would use Facebook and a website. And we've kind of had these conversations, and I've come to the conclusion that our partnership would really love it if we did have all of those. You know, and we've got someone who's helping us build a free website, which is great. But I've been kicked out of Facebook. I don't know why, because I never use it. Maybe that's why. So I don't even know how to get that going again, to create a new Facebook for an organization if it's got to be linked to my personal one, which doesn't exist anymore. So I just feel a bit stuck with it all. And it's almost like, well, if I need to go for the biggest bang for the buck, then which one or two would I start with?
Okay, those are really, really excellent. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for that, because I think these are all like questions I've heard a few times outside of the space as well. So my advice, even in the last session, was I get that so different social media platforms have different demographics sort of associated with them. They're also kind of always changing. That's the other thing, is that, you know, sometimes the change is very gradual. And like, I joined Facebook when I was 15 in the sort of noughties, and then now it's a totally different demographic. It's used for a totally different thing. So that's obviously, it's over the kind of a longer period of time. But then things like Elon Musk has bought Twitter, and then suddenly Twitter, loads of people have left because they hate Elon Musk or they're just fed up. And so then there was a whole like jumping ship to Threads, which is the Twitter equivalent by Instagram or Meta, because now Instagram and Facebook are all sort of one giant company. So because it's so ever changing, and I think we all feel like, okay, this is really important, you know, we need to get our message out, and it's we need to maximize our reach and so on and so on. My best advice, and it's not super scientific, I think it's more from a person point of view, is pick one that you like. Don't force yourself, especially if you're under-resourced, you don't really like it, you wouldn't do it if it wasn't for work. Don't go trying to hit all of the social media platforms, because it will just drive you crazy. The content that you will put out there won't be great, and it just won't, you know, organizations have dedicated teams of people, almost a different person sometimes for a different platform. Like you can get really into depth with everything. And I kind of think that there's no need. Also, because every single platform, thousands and thousands of messages all of the time. Twitter's a great example of that. You know, a few seconds go by, 500 more posts. No one's reading all of them. It's like occasionally one of them catches enough attention to be passed around again. So my best advice is pick a social media platform that you either like or don't hate. Don't try and do all of them. Just pick one. And if you kind of feel fairly confident with one, maybe do two, but don't try to do all of them because it's bonkers out there and there's no need, you know. I think, like I said, that's sort of why my session 1 is very much like fill in your dashboard, make sure you have an anchor, make sure that people can find you on Google. The work that we do is more about people being referred back to us so that we can sort of share information on a quite a like slow and steady pace. It's not like a banging out loads of things every day, 3 posts, 4 posts, you know. There's just no need. We're not a newspaper. We're not, you know, the Guardian basically. So that's my top advice. In a very, very general sense, and I will definitely make a little sort of Reader's Digest written or presented version of this. Twitter is potentially a dying beast. The demographic is very middle-aged and it's quite an angry space, and people sort of scroll through Twitter like angrily reading a newspaper. So it's not the best place to disseminate loads of information. Instagram is a far more sort of lazy boy version of a social media app where people are mostly looking at photos. They're not really trying to condense difficult or complex information on Instagram. It's really like you're sort of it's like, I don't know, an analogy maybe is like it's sort of a slow flowing river and loads of people just bobbing along. And if you reach out a hand that someone is vaguely interested in, you might be able to pull them in for like a couple of minutes, and that's about it. Yeah, Facebook has one of the older demographics of all of the social media platforms at this point. So it all depends on who you're trying to reach within your network, within your place. And we can definitely delve more and even into the research of sort of who's using Facebook and why at the moment, because it used to be, like I said, completely different to what it is now. And Facebook, I think, is better for kind of in groups of information sharing. So like gardening clubs, you know, it's very friendly if it's a closed group, if it's something that people are kind of coming back to again and again, and it's like more like a forum than really a proper social media platform. LinkedIn is really good in terms of this whole professionality thing. So if as a partnership you are also, I mean, sometimes it's brilliant even just to say, I work for this food partnership, that's my job, this is my profession, and it's also, I think, good to invest in terms of lending credibility to the work that we're doing collectively. And I've been trying quite hard to make the SFP LinkedIn page, which we only started in like January, really say, this is the work that we're doing, we're connected in this way and that way. But still, my top level advice is just pick one. Don't try to do all of them. Pick one that you like. And in terms of the content that you're putting out, also golden rules, people are not going to read loads of things, unfortunately. They really like video, short video, they really like images, they really like something snappy. They just like, it's like a newspaper. It's like, you know, headline, did you catch them? They're not going to read the rest of the article if you didn't. You know, saucy page on page whatever, 1, 2, 3, did they like it? Are they going to read the article? It's kind of like that. And I'm more than happy, because I think this time round, with 15 minutes left of this session, I don't think we've got time to delve into the mechanics of all of the major social media platforms, but I will definitely add this in. So I'm going to do a little Reader's Digest version of it, and if time and space allows, we'll do also another session on it, just on the social media pages. But I know that there's a lot of anxiety around social media, and I think the best thing to do is just don't stress about it too much. Really, it's fine if you're not on every single social media platform telling everyone about the same thing. There was also a question about efficiency of reposting things from one site to the other. Part of the reason that that's not super common is because it doesn't really translate. So there's always like the image is in a different format, or the amount of text that you're allowed has a different word count, or you know, like I personally, if I'm posting something across, say, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter, I will have to manually often just change it, just tweak it a little bit and then post it out on the different platforms. But that's because that's my job and I have time. I wouldn't recommend that you all try and do that every day or every week. It's just a bit bonkers. So I hope that answers most of the questions. I feel like I may have slipped one or two questions out of that. And I know that Vera had her hand up for ages. So any other questions or comments at this point, or things I might have missed?
Can I make just a quick suggestion? I'm trying to think of it from a movement building perspective. For those of you guys who have gatherings, I mean, one way that I think of social media, and I suppose your role as a coordinator, is you're amplifying the wonderful projects that are within your network. So ask them what social media platforms they might be prioritizing their time on. And if there's one that they're particularly active on, then perhaps that might be another way of choosing one. I mean, bearing in mind that all the major ones, it's 50% advertisements and things that you've never followed. So you have to be aware that, the public reach can be limited. However, those projects that are community facing, their communities are following. So perhaps those are kind of the spaces that you can invest in, because ultimately their role is to reach the public. Your role is to reach the public, but also it's to platform the amazing work happening in your area. So if you're getting together, have a kind of, get people to put post-its, something, find out where they are and where you can support them best.
I think also two more points from me, just reflecting a little bit more also on the questions. One is obviously everybody's partnership is different and the circumstances and the funding are different, but young people are very fast. They have very limited attention spans, but they're very quick. So even if you can sort of employ someone even half a day a week, I think the social media sort of capacity of your food network would just increase masses, because they're just fast. It's all very fast paced, and there's a lot of just like quick typing, quick finding of things, quick assembly. I've noticed this. I mean, I consider myself still young, but I think people younger than me have become even faster, which is also crazy. So that's one thing. If you have any really specific questions, like I said, I will make a kind of Reader's Digest version, but if you have any kind of questions, young people they know, they kind of have to know. I spoke to someone in their super early 20s the other day that said, if you don't have Instagram, you're dead to the world, so they kind of have to know. And then a question which was about hashtags and another point. So in the presentation, which I'll also share, the third tip was just connecting everything, just making sure that everything is connected. Hashtags and tagging other organizations or affiliated programs and projects is also incredibly helpful, because the internet is huge and there's loads and loads and loads and loads of different things. But one way to make sure that things kind of find each other is to tag them or to hashtag them. So when I mean tagging, I mean you are referring in whatever post you're writing to the other organization by their name on that platform. So say, for example, I'm writing a Twitter post and I also want to make sure that the people who follow Sustain are also coming to it. I will say blah, 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 whatever it is that I want to say on that post. And then I will tag Sustain as they are written down on that platform, so that those readers can also find the post. And hashtagging is just a more abstract way of doing the same thing. So we have the hashtag sustainable food places, just also so that if anybody else writes a post that has anything to do with the network, they can write blah, 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 hashtag sustainable food places, so that it's just a way of kind of filtering all of the massive amounts of noise, images, words, photos, and everything to, oh, that's also the thing I'm interested in. Because if you're just posting a photo, someone did this recently actually. Someone on Instagram, and I won't name who they are, sent me a photo without any other context. No words, no hashtags, no mentions of anything or anyone. And I said, well, this is lovely, but what is it? What do you mean? I mean, I can only assume. And it was something quite obscure. And they said, oh, I didn't think of, you know, writing any information about what the image was about or writing any tags or links or anything else. And I think that's half of the point of communicating something out is, you know, if you just posted on a blog just an image, nobody knows what you're talking about. It's just giving people as many different ways to reach the thing that you're trying to say. And in the previous session that we had also, there was a lady who said really, really big points about accessibility. And like I said, when we go into the digest of sort of making posts on different platforms, we'll say this as well, but lots of people can't necessarily see the image. And any different way in which you can make sure that people can come to the information, make it as clear as possible, make it the least amount of ambiguous as possible, what you're trying to say. If it's an event, always things like when, where, how you get there. It's just being as clear. It's that's, you know, the name communications is because you're trying to impart information without it getting lost. That's the main thing to keep in mind, however you're making the post. And the other thing is social media is new. There's no wrong way of doing it. It's up to you to, you can interpretively dance the fact that there's an event and make a video of it. That's fine. You know, there's no wrong way of doing it. I think people get really stuck on this, like, oh, but I don't know how. And it's like, no one knows how. They're just making it up as they go along. Francesca.
Hiya. We've got quite a nice landing page for our partnership now, and I've embedded media articles, and there's lots of useful links, and it's growing. We're getting there gradually, but I haven't got any Facebook or Twitter, anything like that. But when we do have our partnership meetings, and we regularly share information, I often get asked, can you share it in a format that we can then post on Twitter on their networks? But I don't know what those formats are. So if you can put that in your guide of what we need to do to make it go on their networks easy, that would be a helpful start for me, even though I haven't got those networks yet built up myself.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Francesca. I think that the main thing is a visual, like an image of some kind, or even a sort of small poster. No, that sounds more complicated than I mean. And a small amount of wording. I think this is the thing about comms. It's very easy to explain something with a lot of words. It's actually not very easy to explain something with few words. And Twitter, unfortunately, kind of forces you to do that. It's like, right, you've got this amount of characters. I can't remember what they are off the top of my head because Elon Musk keeps changing them. So yeah, but I will definitely make sure that I include that as well. And it's really, really, really helpful feedback to get from all of you that, you know, the different particular questions or concerns about the different social media platforms, because that's then something with more information I can cover in more depth that will make the most amount of sense, I hope. Brilliant. I feel like that was a lot of information. So I just want to give everybody one last chance. Any questions or comments or thoughts, or just like exasperation at this whole thing?
I just said that I learn everything from my teenage daughter, and she has great pleasure in telling me when I don't know about something. So I just thought I'd add that in the chat. And I embarrass her when I don't know what something is. So I just thought I'd share that with people. So yeah, I think as you get older, it is quite scary. And I'm still a little bit exasperated with it. But, you know, I use Facebook. I did use Twitter. I haven't used Instagram, and I've never heard of some of the others. So it's just given me thought really to be a bit more open-minded. So thank you for that. Really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries at all. I think we'll do a little kind of map and zoom in on each one. I think that will be really helpful.
Just really quickly, there was a question from Lauren about just resource and literally funding for this stuff. I couldn't answer it myself. I don't think centrally we have any funding for sort of social media or comm stuff. But what I would recommend is to go to the SFP Rise Up and find out how other food partnerships have done this from a funding perspective. I think in my personal experience, there have been approaches where a bit of comms support was tacked onto a funding bid for a specific program or project. So you can, I think I remember Brighton and Hove doing something like that. I might be wrong, but it might be worth exploring with other more established food partnerships, how they've done that when your core in the early stages is really thin. So you don't really have as much funding for core work. So get some advice from them, some kind of creative ways to bring that resource into your food partnership. It's my recommendation.
I know that there's been specific funding for comms in Wales. So there might be just sharing of knowledge and information about sort of how they manage to raise the profile of communications within the work that they do. But yeah, definitely a question for Rise Up. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much, everyone. It's been such a pleasure to see you all smiling. I feel like there's never this much smiling in these sort of sessions, especially when it's something so gritty and so like, I feel like everyone sort of wants to shout and scream, I hate this topic. So thank you. And I will compile what I can. And then the next session is later on in September. Let me just pull out exactly when. The next session is on the 28th of September, same time, same day. And we'll also be tagging on all of this information about social media platforms because that's what's needed. So thank you so much. And if you have any other questions, just send me an email and see you soon.
Right. Thanks, Mara.
All right. Thanks, everyone.